Welcome to a channel that's half memory and half evidence, where truth shows up in worn boots and bad timing. These stories aren't instructions, they are reconstructions, and sometimes there are guests. Nothing here is advice, and none of it's fake, other than this voice. From El Castillo de Blanquet, this is Steve R. Patterson.
1998, when I was getting my start at UGAsports.com, you might recall the story of one of the most incredible high school football prospects of all time. Montego Powers was his name. He stood 6'4". He could run a 4.6 40 defensive end, maybe outside linebacker, prototypical guy for the NFL, ready to go, come off the edge. He was a hard hitter. He was from Garden City High School in Augusta, Georgia, and he did not exist. I made him up. So let me tell you about it a little bit. To do so, I'm going to flip over now. You're going to see here on the screen, recruit on the web may be bogus. Mark Schlabach, Atlanta Journal-Constitution. Montego Powers was the can't miss kid. He was the prototypical defensive end, 6'4", 270, and ran a 40 in 4.6 seconds. All the recruiting sites on the web told you Powers was among the South's most wanted college football prospects in the spring of 1998. Georgia wanted him, Florida wanted him, Florida State wanted him too. Not bad for a kid who didn't even exist. Steve Patterson, publisher of one of the upstart recruiting sites, dreamed up Powers to determine if a rival company was stealing his information. Even Powers' high school, Garden City in Augusta, was fictitious. Actually, it's called a Garden City. If they would have Googled that, they could have figured it out. Of course, this was before there was such thing as Googling that. He was the interest by lots of colleges, it says here, major colleges. We made him out to be an animal, said Patterson, now publisher of UGAsports.com, a website that covers Georgia athletics. We wanted to make him out to be one of the biggest and baddest guys on the field. He was a great tackler and very aggressive player. He just wasn't real. That's my quote. Sure enough, the rival website added Powers to its list of top prospects. And so the story, that was for I think it was at the time, whatever it was, like the Super Southern, whatever. And in fact, the own newspaper here, the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, was one of the papers that did run that back at the time. And I think, because see, Mark Schlabach at the time here, at the time I wrote this came out in 2003, years later. When he'd gone on, he was working at ESPN, I think already by then. At the time, he was working at the AJC. And he was also moonlighting at me as a guy named John Adams on UGAsports.com, a moniker that was used by another famous sports writer out there today, but I'll leave him out of this. So anyway, during the days of David Pollock, David Green, Will Witherspoon, Tim Wansley, and all those Champ Bailey, Champ was just gone. Boss Bailey was around. He was a younger brother. They were all on that team. About this time, they were being recruited. And so what we were seeing was these other people that were trying to cover recruiting like we were. We were actually going out to these high schools, making phone calls, getting taped. I mean, actually going and seeing these kids play and talking to their coaches and, talking to other people about it. You're not really supposed to with the coaches at Georgia, but you know how those are other days' stories. Anyway, we could tell that people were making this stuff up, so we planted them. And then once those other lists came out, those early recruiting lists on who to watch for all the fans out there, we tipped off the media about this and let everybody know, but we waited until it developed out for a while. So anyway, that's the end of it here. There's more of this story here. I had to actually Google it. They do mention here that there was another incident of something like this. I wasn't aware of it. It says the most famous example of a bogus recruit came in 1993. Arthur McDuffie was a college football coach's dream. He was 6'3", 305, straight A student. McDuffie played for Mount Pleasant Academy in rural Mississippi. But the secret about his untapped potential, he got out. Anyway, G&W, I remember these guys. G&W Recruiting, weren't they like up north? Anyway, they had him in there, like their top, 22 high school seniors or whatever. But yeah, man, so it was early fake news. So we could see fake news. After UGA Sports, doing that for 17 seasons total, this was at the very beginning of it. And actually, there was some other people involved. I just got to quick for the dog venters out there, people from the Georgia Bulldog dog vent community on UGAsports.com. That's the message board. You'll remember CB Dog, Charlie Pugh, the recruiting grapevine, recruiting dog was his handle. He was the earliest example of a recruiting website in the Georgia space that I'm aware of. When I was still living in Oregon, beginning UGA Sports in '97, when I had dogs, how about them dogs? He was already doing that at the time, and when I moved to Athens, he's one of the first people I met up with. In fact, we literally met at the varsity, the old one right there at Broad and Millage. And so we cooked up this idea together, and we both listed him to make it even more authentic, to make the kids seem more authentic. So the Grapevine, everybody's favorite old-timey Georgia website from Charlie and his partner. I forget his partner's name at the time, but Charlie was the one who was mostly on the dog bent. He and I and probably Bill Davis, Dog C, had cooked all this up, and I'm sure others from that from that sort of pantheon of George Washington, not George, the Mount Rushmore of dog ventures, you could say. I'm sure that for the dog vent community out there, people like Karate, DM, Gru, all of them probably would have been, maybe even Cartersville Dog Sid, R.I.P. Sid, and Ghost, and J-Mo, and T. All of them are gone. Been a long time, hasn't it, guys, girls? Anyway, that's all I got. So Montego Powers, I hope you're out there. Probably so many Pro Bowl rings right now. Probably a commentator at ESPN to Sport Eds or something like that. That's why we don't know what he's doing. So anyway, that's